Welcome to our deep dive today, where
Yeah.
we'll be kind of like looking into these fascinating ideas about generational blessings and curses.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to be exploring this from a Christian evangelical perspective. So keep in mind, this is one specific lens among many.
Yeah.
We'll be using excerpts from a devotional titled Fight for Your Finances by Pastor Ghislaine,
Okay.
also known as Pastor Guy.
Mm-hmm.
He leads a French-speaking Christian community in Austin, Minnesota.
Interesting.
So it's interesting how this perspective sort of links personal choices with like a lineage of consequences affecting not only the individual, but future generations.
It really is intriguing how that idea that kind of like, ripples through time is presented.
Yeah, so let's unpack this.
Okay.
Pastor Key begins by connecting financial wisdom with Proverbs 3.16,
Okay.
which says, "Wisdom offers you in her right hand a long life, and in her left hand wealth and consideration."
Mm-hmm.
He suggests that managing your finances well is a sign of wisdom, a wisdom that brings not only material wealth, but also a long and respected life. I see. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think, this verse really highlights how wisdom is seen as the key to a fulfilling life in this tradition. It's not just about financial success,
Right.
but about living in a way that brings honor and longevity.
That makes sense. Now, Pastor Guy then jumps into the idea of choosing between blessings and curses,
Okay.
which he connects to Exodus 20.4-6.
Mm-hmm.
This passage talks about God punishing the sins of the fathers upon their children for generations.
Right.
But it also highlights God's love extending to 1,000 generations of those who love him and follow his commandments.
Yeah, this passage often sparks debate,
Oh, really?
even within Christian circles.
I see.
Some argue that it emphasizes God's justice and the lasting impact of our choices.
Ah.
Others suggest it's more about the consequences of turning away from God's guidance, not necessarily a direct punishment on later generations.
That's a really important distinction.
It is.
So it's not necessarily a straightforward punishment passed down,
Yeah.
but rather a consequence of choices that might ripple through generations.
Exactly. And Pastor G emphasizes personal responsibility.
Okay.
He points to Deuteronomy 30.9920, where Moses gives the Israelites a choice. Choose life and blessings by loving and obeying God, or choose death and curses by rejecting him.
It seems this concept of actions having far-reaching consequences isn't unique to Christianity.
You're right.
Think of karma in Eastern traditions.
Yeah, you're right. The idea that our actions have consequences that extend beyond our own lives is a common thread in many belief systems.
To illustrate this point, Pastor G uses the example of Abraham from Genesis 22.1518,
Okay.
because Abraham obeyed God even when asked to make a difficult sacrifice. His descendants were promised blessings for generations.
What's fascinating here is that Abraham's obedience is seen as planting a seed that yields blessings for his lineage.
Wow.
This concept of seed is powerful. Actions and choices seen as planting seeds that future generations will harvest.
So it's not just about Abraham's personal piety. It's about the legacy he's creating for his descendants.
Yeah.
It makes you think about the kind of legacy we are creating with our own choices.
It certainly does.
Yeah.
Now, Pastor Guy doesn't just leave us with these theological concepts.
Right.
He provides practical tools to address potential spiritual obstacles to financial well-being.
Okay.
Let's dive into some of the key prayers he recommends.
These prayers are woven throughout the devotional, and they each target specific areas.
Yeah?
He talks about renouncing demonic claims over one's life and finances, breaking free from ancestral limitations, and asking for divine restoration and acceleration. There's a real sense of actively engaging in spiritual warfare to break free from any negative influences, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. The language used reflects a worldview where spiritual forces are seen as having a very real impact on our lives. Whether you interpret these forces literally or metaphorically, the underlying message is about confronting and overcoming obstacles that hold us back.
It's almost as if there's a battle for our financial well-being happening on a spiritual level.
That's one way to look at it.
Yeah.
And the prayers offer a way to engage in that battle, to seek alignment with God's will, and to create space for abundance to flow into our lives.
One prayer that stood out to me specifically asks for the acceleration of life and restoration of lost years. What do you make of that?
I think it speaks to the belief that past mistakes, negative influences, or even just missed opportunities can hold us back. It's not about erasing the past,
Right.
but about seeking healing and empowerment to move forward without being defined by those experiences.
It's like asking for a chance to catch up, to make up for lost time.
Perhaps. And it highlights that our past doesn't have to dictate our future.
Now, there are other prayers focused on breaking down obstacles and experiencing breakthrough in all areas of life. Pastor Guy suggests that God can intervene and remove barriers we can't overcome on our own.
This reflects the belief in divine intervention, a key element in the concept of blessings and purses. It suggests that we're not alone in our struggles,
All right.
and that we have a powerful ally who can help us overcome obstacles and move towards a place of blessing.
It's a powerful reminder that we have support both seen and unseen as we navigate the complexities of life. But it's not just about passively waiting for things to happen, is it?
Not at all. Pastor Guy emphasizes that we need to actively engage in shaping our destiny.
Oh, yeah.
He calls this fighting the good fight of faith.
So it's a combination of divine grace and human effort working together.
Exactly.
And this brings us to a pivotal point in the devotional. Pastor Guy's call to action.
This is where he moves from concepts to practical steps, urging his readers to actively apply these principles in their lives.
Let's explore that call to action in the next part of our deep dive. It's a powerful message that I think will resonate even with those outside of this particular belief system.
I agree. There's a lot to unpack in this call to action, and I'm sure you'll find some valuable insights to apply to your own life. Stay tuned for part 2.
Okay, great.
Picking up where we left off,
Yeah.
let's explore Pastor Guy's call to action.
Okay.
He uses the analogy of a boxer preparing for a match, emphasizing that we need to be spiritually and mentally ready to face life's challenges.
So he's not just talking about passive faith.
Right.
It's about actively engaging in the process of spiritual and financial transformation.
Precisely. He urges his readers to wake up and engage in the battle for their faith, their families, their finances, and their future.
Wow.
He links these different aspects together, suggesting they're all interconnected.
It makes you realize that financial well-being isn't isolated.
Yeah.
It's part of a larger picture of a fulfilling life.
Exactly. Now, one thing that struck me about this call to action is the emphasis on personal responsibility.
Okay.
While he talks about divine intervention,
Right.
he also stresses that we can't just sit back and wait for things to happen.
It's about taking ownership of our choices, aligning ourselves with our values, and actively working towards the life we want.
Right. He even encourages readers to develop a warrior mentality.
Oh, wow.
Not in a sense of aggression, but of courage, discipline, and resilience.
So it's about facing challenges head on, not shrinking back from them.
Exactly. And he provides practical advice on how to cultivate this warrior mentality.
Like what?
One key point is the importance of surrounding yourself with the right people.
He talks about the power of community, doesn't he?
Yes. He stresses that we're not meant to go through this alone.
Right.
We need a community of like-minded individuals who can uplift us and help us stay focused on our goals.
It's like having a team in your corner cheering you on and helping you up when you fall.
That's a great analogy. And this sense of community is especially important when facing spiritual challenges.
Now, speaking of spiritual challenges,
Yeah.
you mentioned earlier that Pastor Guy uses some strong language when talking about spiritual warfare.
Right.
Terms like demonic claims and tyranny of lineage can sound intense, even if you're familiar with this kind of language.
It's true. Those terms might not resonate with everyone.
Right.
However, they reflect a worldview where spiritual forces are seen as very real and potentially influencing our lives.
Even if you don't take those terms literally,
Yeah.
could you say they represent the internal battles we all face? Those negative thoughts, limiting beliefs, and unhealthy patterns that hold us back.
Absolutely. Whether you attribute those inner struggles to spiritual forces or psychological conditioning, the idea of confronting and overcoming them is a powerful one.
And Pastor G provides specific prayers for addressing these spiritual influences.
He does.
Do you think these prayers could be helpful even for someone who doesn't necessarily believe in demons or spiritual warfare in a literal sense?
I think so. These prayers are about seeking liberation from anything that might be hindering our growth and well-being. For someone who doesn't subscribe to the same belief system,
Yeah.
these prayers could still be seen as a way to connect with a higher power,
Right.
tap into inner strength, and release negative patterns.
So it's not necessarily about the literal words,
Right.
but the intention and the desire for positive change.
Exactly. And I think that's a key point.
Yeah.
Pastor Guy encourages readers to approach these prayers with sincerity about faith and a willingness to actively participate in their own transformation.
It's not just about reciting words. It's about engaging with them on a deeper level, allowing them to spark a shift within ourselves.
Right. And he emphasizes that this is an ongoing process, not a one-time fix.
It's like a journey with ups and downs, challenges and breakthroughs along the way.
Exactly. And that brings us to another important aspect of his call to action, the importance of perseverance.
He talks about fighting the good fight,
He does.
which suggests that there will be obstacles and setbacks.
And he reminds readers that even when things get tough, they're not alone. They have God on their side, and they have the strength within themselves to overcome any challenge.
It's a message of hope and resilience, isn't it?
Absolutely.
A reminder that we have the power to shape our destiny, even when faced with adversity.
Now, we've covered a lot of ground here,
Yeah,
from the theological concepts to the practical advice.
Right.
As we move towards the final part of our deep dive,
Okay.
I want to circle back to the core concept we've been exploring, the idea of generational blessings and curses.
Okay. So let's synthesize what we've learned.
Okay.
We started with this idea that choices have ripple effects, that our actions can impact not only our own lives, but also the lives of future generations.
And we explored how this concept is rooted in a specific belief system, but also how it contains universal truth that can resonate with anyone regardless of their beliefs.
We talked about the importance of personal responsibility,
Yeah.
of making choices that align with our values and contribute to a positive legacy.
And we delved into Pastor Guy's practical advice on how to break free from negative patterns, cultivate a warrior mentality, and actively engage in creating a life of abundance and blessing.
So as we wrap up this section, I want to leave our listener with a question to ponder.
Okay.
We've talked about the impact of our choices on future generations.
Right.
But what about the influence of the past on our present lives?
That's a great question. How do we reconcile the idea of personal responsibility with the reality that we're all shaped by our past, by the choices and experiences of those who came before us?
It's a complex question, and there are no easy answers.
True.
But I think it's an important one to wrestle with, especially in light of the concept of generational blessings and curses.
I agree. And I think exploring this question will lead to some insightful reflections. And maybe even some practical steps you can take to create a more positive and fulfilling life for yourself and for generations to come.
We'll delve deeper into this question and offer some final thoughts in the last part of our deep dive. Stay tuned for part 3. Welcome back to our deep dive, where we've been, talking about generational blessings and curses.
Yeah, it's been a fascinating journey.
We've been exploring this concept through the lens of Pastor G's devotional, Fight for Your Finances.
Right?
And as we wrap up our discussion, I
Yeah.
want to bring us back to that question we posed at the end of the last part.
Okay.
How do we balance this idea of personal responsibility with the fact that our past, family history, the choices of our ancestors can impact our present lives?
It really makes you think.
Because if our present can be influenced by the past, does that mean we're destined to repeat the patterns of previous generations?
Right.
Or do we have the power to break free from those patterns and create a new legacy?
I think Pastor G offers some really valuable insights here. While he acknowledges the potential for, negative influences from the past, he really emphasizes that we're not bound by them.
We have a choice.
Yeah, we have a choice.
We can actively engage in shaping our destiny,
Exactly.
even if we're carrying the weight of generational patterns.
He points to the power of prayer, of seeking divine intervention to kind of break free from negative influences and align ourselves with a path of blessing.
He also stresses the importance of recognizing and confronting those negative patterns.
Yeah.
Whether we see them as spiritual influences or just unhealthy habits passed down through generations.
And that's where the practical advice comes in.
Yeah.
He encourages readers to really examine their beliefs, their behaviors, and the patterns they see playing out in their lives and families.
So it's like taking ownership of our lives, recognizing where we have agency.
Exactly.
And making conscious choices that align with the legacy we want to leave.
It's not about denying the past, but about transforming it.
Okay.
Using it as a springboard for growth and positive change.
And I think that's a message that resonates with anyone,
It does.
regardless of their spiritual beliefs.
It really does.
We all have that power to shape our own destinies, even when faced with challenges or inherited patterns.
It's a message of hope
Yeah.
and empowerment.
That we're not victims of our past, but architects of our future.
Exactly.
So if this concept of generational blessings and curses speaks to your past, take some time to reflect on your own family history.
Yeah, think about the patterns you see repeating,
What beliefs have been passed down?
both positive and negative.
And what steps can you take to create a new legacy of blessing for yourself and future generations.
Remember, you have the power to choose.
Yeah, you can perpetuate the patterns of the past, or you can break free and create something new
Something positive.
that will ripple through generations to come.
It's a journey
It is.
of self-discovery, healing, and empowering yourself to live a life of purpose.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into generational blessings and curses.
We hope this has given you some things to think about.
And maybe even inspired you to take some action in your own life.
Until next time.
Keep exploring, keep learning.
And keep striving to create a legacy of blessing.
For yourself and the world around you.